All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Still got just a couple people logging in, but it's just after the time to get started, so we'll start with the session today. I want to thank everyone for joining us for another 30-minute expert session. Today, we're going to be talking about B2W Track and how you can customize your electronic field logs to get the right data. And with the next slide here, and first, we'll do some introductions. My name is Mark Hooks. I'm one of the senior solutions engineers here at B2W Software. I'll be giving you the presentation today. I've been with the company for 11 and a half years. I was a trainer, I was an implementer, and that was all my roles for years before I started working with the sales team doing these product demonstrations. Sitting alongside me today is Mr. Tom Willey. Tom Willey is also one of our senior solutions engineers, had a very similar path through the company, has been here a couple of years longer than I have. Tom's going to be taking a little bit of a silent role today, but he may speak up when we have some questions and things that come in. He's going to be monitoring that questions panel. This is a pretty short half-hour session, and we do encourage folks to ask questions along the way. We'll do our very best to get those answered. You'll see that you do have a questions panel there on your end, so you can submit those questions. If it's a question that applies to the overall audience, then we'll do our very best to address those during the webinar. Sometimes the questions come in that are a little bit off topic or maybe just really niche to your company and what your needs are. We may have to take those offline and call you after the webinar today. So, for our agenda, we'll be doing a quick overview of B2W Track, but our main focus is going to be within the field log of B2W Track and how you can make your own customizations. If you follow our 30-minute expert sessions, you may notice that we had a very similar webinar about 6 months ago. So for the folks that were not here for the last webinar on customizing field logs, I'm going to recap what we went over, but there's also a couple of new customizations we're going to add in today. We're going to add in the ability to track overhead accounts, and I'll show you how you can set up to get your employee signatures to sign off on their time. All right. First, let's talk a little bit about B2W Track. For those folks who are not using it, it's a tool to easily capture the field information and immediately compare that to how the work was estimated, and immediately get real-time feedback. And in real time, I mean real time. You're not having to wait a week or so for payroll and things like that to get you the information. We're able to give you that day by day, but also over any specific time period that you want to look at those comparisons. The field log within B2W Track gives you an easy way to capture the field information, such as production, labor, equipment hours, material usage, but there's really a lot more that you can capture, and you're going to see that as we go through the demonstration today. The central system really is to structure, as it says there in bullet number 2, the enterprise data, and to standardize the processes for data capture. That way you're getting consistent data as far as reporting in the back end from the product. The mobile app that comes with B2W Track also has real-time reporting, electronic signatures, dashboards, and it also gives you that real-time comparison that you see back in the office as well. Nice thing about the tablet app, iOS, Android tablets, and also it can be used totally offline. You don't need an internet connection to use the tablet application to collect the data in the field. So why customize? What's the point? Out of the box, the field log can be a very effective tool to collect a lot of field information. But we know if you're sending a guy out to do, say, paving, the information you need from that guy or that set of guys may be totally different than the information you need from the guys who are going out to lay pipe or do earthwork. So we all know that one size does not fit all when capturing data in the field. So the ability to customize the look and feel of the field log really adds to your ability to, again, capture the information that you want, which means consistent data for your company, but also we want to make it as easy as possible for the guys in the field to get you that information. And then there's also different ways that you can create these customizations that we're going to be looking at today. As we showed in the last webinar, you can simply rename a field or an entire section of the field log so the guys are seeing familiar language. You can also create your own user-defined fields, and you'll hear me refer to those as custom properties. You can hide entire sections of the field log when the folks in the field don't need to capture information, such as subcontractors, or there's no trucking, or they're not dealing with time and material. There's no reason they need to see those sections. It just kind of muddies the works a little bit. You can even have different versions of the field log in the background, again, maybe for the different divisions of your company. And just a little bit about reporting. You also have the ability to report on these custom properties. Our standard reports that are there before you ever build your first custom field or custom property won't recognize these user-defined fields, but the information is in the database and can be pulled out. So through your own reporting methods, through Excel-based data mining, things like that, you can actually get to that information. But we will take a look at some of our standard accounting exports that do include the ability to pull these user-defined fields. We're going to do that a little bit later on at the end of the demonstration. So basically, all the customizations really happen in the background of the product. And some of the fields I'm going to show you as we get into the demonstration you may have never seen, based on, again, your permissions and what you can do in the program. But everything gets applied to what we refer to a business unit. And that's really where the field log lives and breathes, so that's where you go in to make any changes. So we're actually going to switch over to the operations platform for the remainder of the demonstration, and that's what you're seeing here. This is B2W Operations, and we're going to be focusing mainly on the track system today. But you can see we also, as a full service product with our operations, you can schedule your folks and your equipment, hauls, materials, go out to your site, maintain your equipment, build your own forms and report on them. The track is the piece that fits in that after you've won the job, you push the information over from the estimate over, and now the guys need to track that information. And that's where, again, one size does not always fit all needs in the field. So the first thing that we're going to look at as far as customizations is we're going to look at those custom properties like that we created on the last webinar. I think that's important to reiterate because it's one of the main easy ways that you can go in and make your own changes. The customizations happen right here under the setup menu. So if you go to custom properties, now please excuse my busy screen. I do these product demonstrations and I've built more than just a few examples over the years, but you can see here's a list of my custom properties. Now they can be created and organized per section of the field log that you want to put them into. So if I drop down, these would be my employee-specific custom properties I can load into that area of the product. These would be the ones that I have for equipment and so on and so on. And these are the big lists that I have for my general top section of the field log. Now, there's also different types, like I refer to them a lot as styles of fields that you can put on your field log. And I'm gonna pop in here and show you. When you create a new custom property, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to give it a name. The first name that you see here is actually your database name. That's the name that we're going to store in the back end. So if you're looking for that information, say for reporting and things, and automatically that becomes your display name, but you can actually have a different display name than you do a general information name there. And then you decide what area that you want to put that custom property into. And here's the different types or the different styles of fields that you guys can create. And you can do all this on your own, given the permissions to get back in the back end and do this. It could be drop downs with multiple choices that they can pick from. Currency fields, date fields, multiple lines of text, single line of text, numeric fields, time fields, yes, no checkboxes. Really what we're trying to do here is make the field as easy as possible and point to the kind of data that you want the guys to collect. We just kind of show you if we picked on the choice drop down. This is where, again, what section is it going to show up in? Do you allow them to choose multiple choices? And then you give them the choices that they're going to pull from. And you'll see you can even set up defaults. If you want a default entry, when the guy opens it up, that's going to be there. But again, lots of different ways. And for each one of these, it will show you if I'm going to do multiple lines of text. And basically, I'm giving it a name. I can put a default value, and now the guys can start typing or using the voice recognition on the tablet to get the information in there. All right, so now you've got your custom property created for any of the different sections. Now you need to apply it to a field log. But we're going to hold off on that just for a second. I mentioned there's a couple other customizations that we're going to set up before we actually make those changes on the field log. So the first that we can set up now before we go back into that business unit and do the setup is an overhead account. Now, I always describe an overhead account as non-production work. It's those other things that the guys have to do that still have a cost behind it over and above those line item created, what we call tracking or production accounts. All these start in the job. So that's where we're going to head over to. We're going to go to a job. We're going to go into one of my jobs here. And there's an area here called tracking accounts. And again, some of you guys may not have ever seen these screens. So these are the tracking accounts, or basically the buckets of costs that are created from the estimate so that you guys can now start tracking your time, your effort, your production, and things against them. When you go into the tracking account area, there's really two types of accounts. There's a production account, and these again are created when you push the bid over based on the line item or task in that bid. There's also at the bottom something called overhead accounts, and this is the other work that still costs you money when the guys are doing it in the field. And just a few simple examples, I got per diem tracking, and when they have a safety meeting, they need to put the hours in there for that, shop cleanup, travel, hotel costs, things like that. Again, user defined. You can create as many overhead accounts for the job as you want. I'm going to pick on that safety meeting and just kind of open it up there for you. Basically here, when you create an overhead account, you're going to give it a tracking ID, and that's a unique identifier for this when the guys see it on their field log. You also can apply an account ID, and in most respects, that's your cost or your phase code, because at the end of the day, just like your employee hours with your production accounts, we're going to be able to send this out potentially to your accounting system so that when it goes over with employee and equipment hours against it, you don't have to re-enter that into accounting. You'll have a description, which the guys will see on what they're putting their hours or time against. You'll have what's called a value type. And that's the different ways that we can create an overhead account. It's either going to be dollars, it's going to be hours entry, or a quantity entry. And based on that, you'll also have what's called cost calculation type. That could be, you could set up just a solid unit cost, or you could say that the cost when they put their hours in is a percentage of the labor type or equipment type cost that's in the background. We could get a lot deeper in there, but for the sake of the demonstration today, we'll stick with just kind of the basics. That could be the subject for another webinar. We also have a default value. The default value in this case for a safety meeting is my safety meetings are always an hour, and very seldom does that ever change. So when the guy adds a safety meeting to his field log, why should he have to go in and type the 1 there when that's usually what it is? So you can have a default value which can be modified once it hits the field log. And down below where it says applies to, this is a very handy feature so that the guys are putting the information where it's supposed to go. In this case, a safety meeting would only apply to employees. Overhead accounts can apply to employees and or equipment. So in this case, I've excluded the ability for the guy to accidentally put anything into an equipment section. Only the employee section will be available for me to put my safety meeting hours against. All right, so that's it. We've created our custom properties. We've also got information here that we've created for overhead accounts. And one thing I should mention about overhead accounts here too, they can actually come in from the estimate. So if you have, say, an indirect or whatever created with the appropriate cost codes that match in here, you can auto-create these overhead accounts for the job. You don't have to come in and manually create those. So now everything's in place. Now we need to go apply it to the field log. So we're actually going to go back out to the home page, and then we'll go to that same setup menu that we were in earlier, go into a different section. We're going down to business units. And all the customizations really happen here in the business unit. The business units area does a whole lot, but for this session, we're going to stick with field log customizations. And again, my screen is very busy. Most companies may only have one or a handful of business units in place. So I do these demos for a lot of different scenarios, have a lot of different business units. But remember, in any company, each business unit can hold its own version of the field log. So we're going to take a look inside one of these. I'm going to go into my demo business unit here. And you'll notice here's the general information section. You can make maintain settings and track settings, and that's what we're going to go to today. and then we're going to put this in edit mode. So this is really where the magic happens. There's a lot you can do here to personalize the field log. So as we go down, I'll point out some other things that you can add in as well. You know, what kind of reports are going to show when you finalize your field log. But here's the second addition that I mentioned that we were going to do as part of the demonstration today. We're actually going to go in and turn on the ability to get signatures for your employees for their time. And all you have to do to make that happen is that and done. It can be a daily or a weekly timesheet, but you also have the ability, when the guys are signing off their time, are there questions they need to answer? So if I want to add a question here like, did you have a safety meeting? That way, every time they go in and they sign off their hours, that you can have user-defined questions that they have to address before to let them finish that. As you go down the screen, the field log checks, for those of you who may not have seen that, this is where all the error checking happens in the background and how you determine if you want that potential error to fire off or not. There's also one for, or a couple here, for employee on the field log is not signed off his hours worked. So you can choose if you want that to fire off. Again, those are further customizations you can make to personalize your field log and how it operates in your company. As you go down the list, you'll also start seeing each of the different sections of the field log. Here's another customization that you can make. You can actually change the labeling for any of the fields that we have here. Any box here that lets you do that, like, you know, here I've got a supervisor, but maybe you called a superintendent. Or for notes, I want to say notes and general comments. So you can go in and make those changes, again, to customize what the guys see so they're seeing familiar language. Over on the right side, you'll start to see these green plus signs for adding general information fields, adding an attachment, adding a job column. This is where those custom fields that you just created now live and breathe. So when you hit the button here, what happens is you'll go in and see your custom fields. Now, this is not just your custom properties, though. If you have, we have fields in there that we actually build that people may want to use, that we store in the background. Also, as you make customizations, you can remove fields that you don't like. They would also be stored here as well, so you can reintroduce them to the field log. So as you go down, you'll see all the ones I have for this section, and we're going to add in maybe, let's do weather and visitors and inspectors. Once you add that in, you'll notice they also follow down to the bottom positions. So if I wanted my notes field to be the last thing that they see, all I have to do is change the position down to the last position, and now everything goes above it. Now when it shows up, my note field will be the last thing that they see on that section. And as you go down, you're also starting to see another piece here, show job section, show production account section. That's where you can turn on or turn off entire sections of your field log. So for this demonstration, we're going to come right here and we're going to turn on that overhead account section. But again, customizing any of the fields, how you want to sort things, and even changing the entire section's title. In this case, overhead accounts might mean nothing to you guys, but non-production work may make more sense. So for any of the areas, you can see there's lots of ways you can change things up to get you really what you want to present to the guys in the field. And when you do that, all you have to do is hit this save button, and now everything that you've done is now loaded into the program. So when the guys go in and open up the field log under that business unit, they're going to see those changes automatically. So it's pretty unlimited on how you can set the field log up to make it as simple or as detailed as you want the guys to have it in their hands. And also a little bit about the tablet application. Nothing you have to do special to the tablet app. We've designed that so that automatically when they sync their tablet, those changes are going to be seen. So that's where we're going to head now. Let's take a look at a field log to show you those changes in action. So I'm going to actually pull my tablet over and show you what that's going to look like. So there's my tablet. We're going to go into the tablet app and we're going to actually create a field log. So we're going to go in here and put my pen in. There we go. And then we're going to create a new field log. I'll tell you what, let's do a quick sync to make sure we've got everything in there. That synchronization, again, is pulling all the new information onto the tablet app. New field log, make a quick copy, create the field log, and there you go. Those customizations, that's because I need to go into the appropriate business unit. So we're going to change up that business unit on the tablet and go to that demo business unit. Done. Automatically, you'll notice your non-production work section has now fallen in. If you go over to the side here in my general section, there's your visitors, there's your inspectors, your weather field, and when they pop open, there's one of those check boxes so they can go in and pick whatever they like right off the list. Now, on this left-hand side, you're seeing the name changes so the guys can go here, but we also do this a little bit differently as well, as we keep that naming convention wherever it needs to show up in the field log. So if I go to my grid view, and if I need to add in one of those non-production work accounts, I hit the add button, and you'll notice even in the pop-ups that we have that get you to access the information, that's also been renamed. So if I go here, non-production, we're going to go grab that safety meeting, and we're going to add that in, and it did just what I told it to do. It brought in the default values that if my safety meeting overran what that was or whatever, I can come right in there and change it. So basically from here, what's going to happen is the guys are going to go in and they're going to fill in their field log. A couple of 100 tons there, and yeah, we did 400 over here. And I worked my guys solid across these two field logs. They did 5 hours on each. So that easy, I've got my hours in. But now we're going to go to the other piece that we just added. We're going to go to employee signatures. How do I get my guys to sign off on that field log? So basically here I go down to my employee section, and I go in, and you'll notice there is a sign time card button there. When I hit that button, it brings up a form that's got, again, the questions that we entered in earlier. It's got the hours, it's got my labor type, it's got my job, my foreman, all that information's there. If it was regular time, overtime, whatever, however you separate your hours, that would show here as well. They can type in to enter notes, and then when they're ready, they come here, sign in their name, done, save. That's now held as a, oh, didn't answer the question. You'll notice there, because I did not answer that question, it gave me a warning. Have to answer the question, and now I hit save. Now that's creating a PDF in the background, and that's storing that information with my field log. So as I mentioned, you know, it is that quick and that fast to go in and make very specific edits to this field log to keep it, again, as simple or as detailed as you want. I also mentioned that the custom properties that you create are reportable. So again, with a little expertise, you can pull this information out. But also I mentioned too that we're going to take a look at something in the system that we've built that will automatically extract these custom fields, and that's through the add-ins that we have to send out to accounting. So I'm going to go over to another area here. I'm going to go to add-ins. And again, excuse my busy screen. Most folks would not have 35 different exports out. But these are the different areas that we can export out to. And if you go into even our standard field log export, you'll notice there that we can include custom employee properties, custom equipment properties. So on the one that we have that's kind of a generic export, absolutely you can push that information out into a file. But even some of our ERP or accounting specific exports allow you to do that as well. If you go into the, I'll use Viewpoint as an example, Viewpoint also gives, and let me show you how this one works. You actually get to list the custom properties that you want to send out, and you just name them, and it'll send those out for you. Well, guys, that's the main points I wanted to show you today, and hopefully you could see today that you have the ability to make very simple or very detailed customizations to get just the right data you need from the guys in the field every time. We all know that getting the information from the field can sometimes be a challenge, but if you focus the field log layout to just what you need, it really makes it easier for everyone involved. So let's go back to the world of PowerPoint. If there's questions coming in, please let us know. While we're waiting to see if there's any additional questions coming in, please look out for the next webinar. We're doing our next webinar on better safety management with electronic forms and reporting, and that one's going to be on April the 23rd. Also, if you have questions after today's demonstration, or if somebody else needs to see this, we're going to be sending you a link to this webinar so you can pass that around for the folks who potentially couldn't make it. But if you have questions, you can always call our sales department for demonstration on some of the things that we've shown you today. And for our customers, you can always call our support department, and that way they can help you walk through any of the features that I've shown you today on the demonstration. Well, folks, we're almost out of time, so I do want to thank you for attending. And again, keep a lookout for any future webinars for the 30-Minute Expert Series.